Hey everybody, this is Kevin, and welcome to a different sort of Saturday sports card show. Technically, these are sports cards, but they're of a different nature. As you can see, this is space related, specifically NASA. And I wanted to highlight, well, first of all, I want to highlight this tin, but what's actually in the tin is not what originally came in the tin. And I want to show you my collection that's in here. What originally came in here were these 5 metallic cards, and we're going to go through these here in a second. But this tin here, you can see it says Mercury. It's part of a three tin collection. The first one is obviously Mercury. The second one is Gemini. We'll get to that next week, and then followed by Apollo. And kind of show you the outside. It's a beautiful little tin box. Shows the mission patches there. And on the back, I'll read this to you here. It says, Metallic Impressions Incorporated brings you premier metal collector cards of your favorite subjects and celebrities. Highly embossed graphics frame your beautifully rendered memories on each card. Printed metal back inserts also have additional graphics, interesting text, and biographical information. This wonderful combination of metal collector cards and collector's tin will be treasured by all enthusiasts and collectors. So that's more of a generalistic little paragraph there, not specific to the content inside, but this was made back in 1996, and it is a NASA, well, I guess NASA gave permission in the photos. So, but this is pretty heavy because there's some stuff in here we're going to get into here in a second. But I want to show off the cards first. We'll start off by number 1 here, and you can see they're thick and they're metallic. Well, can't really hear the, the sound, but anyways, you can see a little embossing there on the side. But this is obviously a Mercury Redstone lifting off. And I'm not sure if that's Alan Shepard's or not. But they're very short, so we'll go through these one at a time. Card number 1 here. After the former Soviet Union launched the first satellites into space in 1957, interest was high to develop an American space program. On October 1st, 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, was created by an act of Congress. Project Mercury was NASA's first plan to put an astronaut into space. So that's the premier card for this set. Again, very nice. Now, when these are not on display here, I keep these in a binder. There's 5 cards, and you know, a typical 9-pocket page. I've got one in the top left, top right, center, and then bottom left, bottom right. So I've got the 5 cards evenly dispersed across the page. So let me slide that back there. That's card number 1. Let's read card number 2 for you. That's kind of like a cutaway of a Mercury capsule. Card number 2. The bell-shaped Mercury capsule was designed to carry one astronaut into orbit 100 to 176 miles above the Earth. Weighing less than 3,000 pounds, the capsule measured only 9 feet 7 inches end to end. The astronaut reclined on a contour couch in a pressurized cabin arranged like a fighter aircraft cockpit. Which makes sense because that's what these guys were formerly. They were former fighter aircraft and test pilots, so they were used to sitting in that configuration. So pretty cool. Gives you an idea of how high in orbit they went. Now, when they flew the Mercury, I should point this out. When they flew the Redstone rocket, they did not get into orbit. It didn't have enough power to get it to the velocity it needs to stay in orbit, which is a little over 17,000 miles per hour. So these were called suborbital flights. They just basically went up. Well, here, I'll illustrate. They went up, arced over, broke through the line, outer space, and then they fell right back to Earth. This did not have enough speed to gain orbit. But then they started utilizing the Atlas rocket, which had the velocity, which is what got John Glenn into orbit for the first time, in the same capsule, the same Mercury capsule, but on a more powerful rocket. All right, let's see what this one says. Now, this is interesting. It says, launched by a mighty Redstone missile, but that is not a Redstone missile. That is the top of an Atlas. So on the cover here, you can see that's an Atlas rocket. This is the top of the Atlas. So why they chose to use that picture when they're talking about the Redstone, I don't know. Launched by a mighty Redstone missile, Alan B. Shepard Jr. became the first American in space on May 5, 1961. His Mercury capsule, named Freedom 7, reached an altitude of 116 miles and made a 15-minute suborbital flight. After re-entry, the capsule was slowed by parachutes and splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean. So they should have actually had that on this card, because that's a Mercury Redstone rocket, or what they call a missile. But anyway, I digress. Here's another Mercury. Beautiful images, by the way. Okay, number 4. Here we go. Here's talking about maybe the Atlas. After blasting off from Cape Canaveral on February 20th, 1962, John H. Glenn, Jr. became the first American to fly into orbit. Powered into space by an Atlas missile, Glenn's Friendship 7 capsule completed 3 orbits of the Earth in 4 hours and 55 minutes. Millions of Americans cheered this momentous event. So I'm seeing the same imagery on the back of each card, but obviously the fronts are different and they don't match up the story. Again, that's a Redstone, and they're talking about the Atlas, so no rhyme or reason for that, but it is what it is. All right, now here's another Atlas. So in fact, that's the same one on the cover right there. You can tell that's the same image. Okay, let's see what this one says. Project Mercury, America's first manned space program, was completed after a 22-orbit flight on May 15 through 16, 1963. Since 1960, NASA had launched 4 manned orbital and 2 manned suborbital flights, in addition to numerous unmanned test flights. NASA was now ready for the next phase of space exploration. And next week we will get into that next phase, which was the Gemini program. So you could probably see here in this image, Mercury was a one-man capsule. So the first NASA program, Mercury, carried 1 astronaut. The second program, called Gemini, carried 2 astronauts, followed by the third program, Apollo, which carried, you got it, 3 astronauts. So, good little introduction there, but I'm really anxious to show you what I've got inside this tin. Because I could display these cards in my binder, that left me with an empty tin, so I thought, well, that gives me a perfect place to house some mementos of my collection. So I've got some very special NASA cards in here, the combination relics, autographs, all sorts of good stuff. So let's look at my collection here. And I kind of have them sorted that I've got the least important up to the most important. So you're not going to see the best cards in my collection just yet. But these are still fun and worthy of showing off. So here we have, this is from Panini, Americans, Heroes, and Legends series. Let me try to get the angle here. This is Fred Gregory. A little bit of a glare because they're all one-touched and in team bags, so little glare going on. But there's a relic, an actual item that he wore at some point in his life. Don't know. Obviously not probably a space-flown garment, but something that he at some point has worn himself. This card is numbered 33 out of 99. And it says, Fred Gregory, astronaut. History was made in the U.S. space program on November 22nd, 1989, when the shuttle Discovery blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Piloting that mission was Gregory, who made news as the first African-American commander of a space flight. In all, Gregory took part in 3 shuttle missions. So he was not the first African-American in space, but he was the first commander, which is pretty cool. Let me read the bottom here. This comes from 2012 Panini set. And again, these are, can you imagine opening up, I guess they came in maybe inserts of baseball cards. I'm not exactly sure how they were presented, but imagine you're going through a pack of cards and you stumble upon this relic. That is just too cool. So, okay, that's card number 1. Card number 2, we've got Dick Gordon. Same thing, a little relic. And this one is numbered 97 out of 99. Dick Gordon, astronaut, the first project test pilot for the F-4H Phantom II fighter jet, which was a workhorse in the Vietnam War. Gordon later shifted his focus to manning spacecraft for NASA. he piloted the Gemini 11 and Apollo 12 missions. Shortly after retiring from NASA in 1972, Gordon became vice president of the NFL's New Orleans Saints. How many people knew that? Former astronaut Dick Gordon used to be a vice president for an NFL team. So there you have it. Pretty cool little knowledge there, little trivia. Here we go. I know this name very well. Robert Crippen. Very famous astronaut, and you'll see why here in a second. We'll read what it says about him. A little relic card. Numbered 73 out of 425, so a little bit higher numbered. Robert Crippen. The American Space Shuttle program has Crippen's prints all over it, as the former Navy pilot was one of the first to sit in a shuttle cockpit. He shared that with John Young, by the way. In 1981, he was assigned with the task of piloting the Columbia on its first orbital test flight. He conducted the 54-hour, 20-minute journey flawlessly. Yeah, Robert Crippen and John Young were the inaugural pilots and commander on the very first space shuttle flight, STS-1, which was Columbia. And very, very cool. And interestingly enough, he was also on board STS-7, which was the crew that carried Sally Ride, the famous Sally Ride, on her first space shuttle mission. So anyway, very cool card there. What do we got next? Charlie Duke, a man that has walked on the moon. Literally. Another relic piece there. Charlie Duke. This is numbered 25 out of 99. Charles Duke, astronaut, the capsule communicator, Capcom, at Mission Control, who spoke with the astronauts during the Apollo 11 mission. Duke later got his chance to dig his boots onto the moon's surface. As the lunar module pilot for Apollo 16 in 1972, Duke, at 36, was the youngest of 12 astronauts to step foot on the moon. So there you go. He was the one communicating with the capsule there when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. So that is pretty cool. And there is a piece of his clothing of some sort. Very cool. All right, here we go. Another Apollo astronaut, Alan Bean. Kind of has a maroon color to it. Let's see, this one is numbered 76 out of 99. Alan Bean, astronaut. Part of the Apollo 12 mission in 1969, Bean made the 250,000-mile trek to the moon and became the fourth man to step on its surface. The lunar module pilot for that mission, Bean helped set 11 world records in space and astronautics, including a 24.4 million-mile voyage as commander of Skylab 3 in 1973. Very cool. Awesome. Alan Bean. Okay, and the last card of the set, one of the original guys, Mercury 7 astronauts. This one is really special. Scott Carpenter, looks like a navy blue piece of clothing there. Numbered 31 out of 299, we have Scott Carpenter, astronaut. The American space program was just getting off the ground, so to speak, when Carpenter was chosen for NASA's Mercury project in 1959. As the second American to orbit the Earth, Carpenter went into space aboard Aurora 7 and completed a 3-orbit trip that saw him rocket over the globe at 17,532 miles per hour. So, very, very cool. Again, these are, in and of themselves, one-of-a-kind cards. I mean, these are just pure gems to collect. But this is not even close to what I would consider the good stuff. So that'll be coming up in weeks to come. But wanted to share these with you. So again, this was Mercury. Next week we will tackle the Gemini box. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. God bless, and we'll see you next week.